In the last solo cash cup, I had the worst Fortnite experience of all time. To start things off hot, the very first game, I literally died to an NPC bot that was guarding the truck, and I've never seen that happen before. What? Oh, no, boys, now the cash cup's done. What just? Then I was struggling to fight the worst players. I was dying to people with 50 PR, people who've never even played cups before. They were packing me in, and it made me realize something truly devastating. I suck at solo Fortnite. Despite me having very good placements so far in trios this season, locking in that mode, and actually I-joining pretty well, I cannot fight and I cannot play endgames in solos anymore. I did so bad in this cup, I don't even show up on the leaderboards because Fortnite can't register you below the top 10,000. So in the very next cup, I decided to lock in. It's the exact same format as a regular solo cash cup, but instead of getting top 600 and qualifying for the finals, instead you get a free Fortnite skin, which we all know is much more important, and people try much harder. And to make this even harder, there was an extra 100,000 people playing this cup trying to win that skin, and the qualification mark was way higher than it is in normal solo cash cups. I'm going to be showing you guys a foolproof strategy. Even if you completely suck at solos, you can't fight players, you can't find refreshers, this video is going to help you get your best ever placement in solos just by following the step-by-step strategy I'm going to outline. All right, step 0. This is really important just before you hop on and start playing the cup. Sit down and watch a pro player. You can either watch, a YouTube video of a pro player, watch exactly some of their old VODs like I was doing right here, realize how they're playing, what they're doing, and then realize that you're probably not anywhere near capable of doing that. I sat down and watched Noah Riley just before the cup started, and I instantly realized that I am not built like that. This guy is absolutely crazy. He's got the best loot. He's easily ending fights versus all these other pros. He's dropping high kill wins. I am not capable of that. So let me not even bother, and let me come up with my own strategy based on what I learned from watching Noah. All right, step number 1, guys, do not ever, and I repeat ever, start on time. Starting on time, I think, is the #1 killer of your performance in solo cash cups. It is so much better when all of those top tier pro players are trying to drop a 30 bomb and all of the really good players are trying to get in those first easy lobbies and drop a high kill win. It's so much better to just spend a little bit more time getting completely warmed up, especially if you just sat there watching VODs, or maybe you just got on just before the cup starts. Don't start the cup until you're fully warmed up and you're ready to go and you feel like you're actually playing pretty good. This also makes it way easier for you to have a consistent game 1 where you don't have to worry about what's going on and who's W king and avoiding them. You're just gonna have a nice, easy, chilled out game 1 where you can execute the strategy I'm going to talk about in a second. And all you need to do is just start 3, 5, 10 minutes late. Make sure you're fully warmed up before the cup starts, and this makes it so much easier so you have a good tournament overall. All right, step 2, with resub dying in the background, this is really important for these cups, is to make sure that you land at a spot that you're basically guaranteed not to die off spawn. Even if you're super contested, land at a spot where you can swerve and land somewhere else. Even if there's only a couple people there, make sure you know exactly where everybody is landing and you know that POI or that drop spot like the back of your hand. Personally, in solos, I prefer learning a POI. I said this in a recent video, just because you have such an easier time of disengaging or just looting up a couple buildings and then dipping without risking having to, fully fight somebody in 50-50, which can easily lead to you dying a couple times at spawn. In a solo cup, you've got 10 games to play in 3 hours, so it's so important that you try to get at least 7 or so end games in that entire time period. If you're dying a spawn more than 3 times, that's going to limit how many points you can actually get from end game, and also it's going to limit how confident you can be during mid games as well, since if you die during a fight and you've already died a couple times off spawn, you'll be a lot more scared when it comes to fighting, especially fighting better players later on. All right, now this brings me on to my next point, which is when should you actually take fights? Remember, in these type of solo cups, fighting and getting elims is only worth 2 points, and you can get 65 points for end games, which is really, really important. So the key thing that you should be doing when fighting is actually only fighting when you need loot or when you have a massive advantage on your opponent. So right there, I didn't have a bat and I hit that guy for a crack, so of course I'm going to go straight over. However, it's really important that you don't magically and think you're Booger in the first game trying to drop a 20 bomb. I actually think it's way better in solo cups to get a low kill win in your first game, which we'll take a look at here. All right, now the next step, and this is actually a really important one for solos, especially if you're not the best player, is don't play with an ego. Like right here, I was playing super confident. I thought this guy wasn't too good, and he put me in a spot where I 100% should have died. Luckily enough, he didn't shoot a shotgun a couple times, and I survived when I was 1 HP, and I was able to actually get out the box right here. It's so important that you do not play with an ego in solos. Taking an ego and fighting people just because they annoy you, or fighting people because you think they're bad, is actually a really bad habit that a lot of players have. Instead, what I would recommend to do is actually go ahead and play every single fight a lot slower, and always make sure you read your opponent. Like right here, I'm trying to fight for the vault. There's a guy camping inside of it, and I'm not rushing to try to end this fight straight away. I'm trying to read what the opponent is doing, where they're positioning, and I'm not actually super desperate about getting these 2 elim points from killing this guy. Instead, Instead, I'm more focused on trying to get game-winning loot. So, getting a better shotgun. Then after this, I'm not focused on killing people. I'm focused on actually just getting as stacked as possible throughout the early mid game and, being in a game-winning position later on. I'm going to give you guys a rule. If you want to do better in solos and you're not the best player, only ever take fights when the other person is full W keying you and you obviously need to fight, you can't really run away. Or if you spot the other opponent is completely clueless, they're in a really bad situation, you get a massive advantage on them, like I said earlier, you crack them. Or in this case right here, I scouted the opponent, which is pretty terrible. I just take a look at how this guy's playing. He's camping inside a building on edge of zone. So of course I'm going to go ahead and take this fight, get a new bat, and then have a very easy time for the rest of this early mid game with better loot. Alright, now let's take a look at how you should actually go ahead and win your first game, since I think a lot of people struggle with this. They either try to key way too much in first game and then only get like 50 points because they die early, or what they do is they go ahead and just choke the win at the very end. You need to be hyper focused on being as stacked as possible. Like, just take a look at my loot right here. I'm by far the most stacked player in the lobby, and I've only got 4 kills. There's other people in this lobby that have got like 10, 15 kills, and I'm the most stacked player, which I'm just going to go ahead and use and play out my mats extremely smartly in this end game to have my chance of having an easy win. So the way that you should go ahead and execute a win in your first game is, again, be the most stacked player and then look for height, especially after second moving. Everybody's going to use all their maps fighting for it on, the first couple zones. All you need to do is stay the most stacked player in the lobby and then just do a nice simple height take like I do right here. Literally just ramping up, pressure the other player who's a little bit shambles backside. And then now at this point in time, I've got a very easy win. And even though I don't have the craziest amount of kills, like this game's going to end up being like a 6 or 7 kill win, this is still a really good start to the cup. And actually, because I started late, as you remember earlier, don't start on time, I'm actually going to be in a very easy next game as well versus a lot worse players. I'm good. Come on, race. All right, now you should be on something around 70 points or so, and it's so important when you're at this point. You're not going to be against the best players in the world, like all those pros you got, like high kill wins first game or things like that, but you need to still not play with an ego. This is so important. Like right here, I cracked this other player, he ran inside the vault, and there's just absolutely no point of me trying to take that fight. Again, look at my loot, I don't need it. I'm just going to execute a very simple strategy of getting stacked and then just playing the entire game out very smart. One really key thing I would recommend doing is literally just sitting in a bush and not doing anything and trying to guess where the next zones are going to go. Trying to get a good advanced zone positioning on everybody else. One strategy I like to use is building a little fake base and then sitting in the bush next to it. If somebody was to try to key me, they would probably try to shoot the base and I'd be able to pump them and then maybe disengage if I don't want to fight it. And this means that I have a much easier time of making it to endgame. You can also camp in buildings, camp in vaults, just camp somewhere where people aren't going to rotate into and try to have good zone positioning so you're not caught up on edge getting W keyed by people. Now, at this point in time, it's all about making it to endgame. So how do you actually do that effectively? And one thing I'd really recommend doing is trying to be very early on rotates, but don't be the first player going. What I like to do, as I did a bunch of these games, is basically, splash, get ready to go, but then I wait for another player to early rotate and I try to beam that other player. Now, as you can see, that player is going to be getting sprayed at by everybody that would potentially be looking at me. I'm able to rotate in completely for free. And also, do not be afraid of wasting metal. I see so many people just building a single brick box on, a later zone, and that just leads to you getting sprayed at, like I'm doing right here. I'm spraying a guy in a brick box just to make sure he waste mats, as well as it leads to you getting boxed for way more. Again, this other player's rotating in next to me. He built brick. He's getting sprayed at by about 3 people right now. And look how much mats he's having to waste and how griefed he's getting just because he's building in brick rather than just building in metal. And also, remember, with these rotates, if you're one of the first people to get in and you don't take damage, you're never going to waste mats because you're not going to get sprayed out most of the time. Now, these end games, honestly, when it's not the most stacked games, are all about just squeezing out as much placement as possible and trying to look for a good opportunity to get a refresh. Right here, I was completely shambles. I'm 70 HP with, only wood, and you really need to look for a refresh where somebody else is fighting, and then you can try to capitalize on both the loot. However, unfortunately though, as I was fighting these 2 players and I'm getting third partied, and this brings me to my next point, which is try to maintain a good mental. What are you doing, bro? Now, after the first hour or so of a cup, this is where I think a lot of people tend to struggle. Either they're not maintaining a good mental, or they just keep on getting keyed and then not getting placement points. So this is one of the biggest tips that I can give you for solos, is just play Storm. Storm is your #1 friend. You don't get Storm sickness until 600 damage taken, and even then, in the earlier zones, it's only like, a multiple of 3, so you take like 3 damage per second rather than 1. You can literally tank from second zone the whole way up to 6 zones, 10 whole minutes in Storm. And playing Storm, one of the biggest benefits that you can have is you do not risk really getting keyed. Right here, I snuck up on the guy trying to claim the vault in Storm. I'm able to scare him away from it. So even though I'm kind of shambles at this point in time and I don't even get this kill, as you can see, this guy just runs straight down to the vault. Just the fact from me playing Storm has allowed me to loot up so much. I'm able to steal the vault from the other player. Now, just from tanking Storm a little bit, I've been able to go ahead and get a full chug, way better shotguns and stuff, as well as now I can go check the black market for free as well. Genuinely, Storm is your biggest friend. Remember, you can play 10 minutes of Storm during the sort of earlier zones before we get into the partial zones, and it is the #1 tip. If you don't want to get W keyed and you don't find sitting in a bush that interesting and you still need better loot and you need to find a bat, just play Storm. It is so helpful to get stacks. Now, at some points in the cup, you're probably going to have a game that looks something like this. As you can see, I'm pretty decent on heals. I haven't been able to find metal, really. I've been spending too much time in Storm, and I don't have a bat, so I have absolutely no mobility, and that's obviously going to happen a couple times. You're not always guaranteed to find mobility or a bat, and if you're not the best fighter, like I definitely was not feeling like the best fighter this cup, it's very, very tempting to, you know, just give up on this game, try to jump in and try to go ahead and third party somebody. One thing you can do is either look for, you know, a fight where somebody has died and there might be a leftover bat with a little bit lower HP, or what I would recommend is just playing the game out super smart. Try to over farm, you know, build loads of walls to cover yourself, try to get yourself towards the dead side of the zone like I'm doing here. Make it easier where you don't have to rely on the bat for rotates, and instead you can do sort of smart on foot rotates where you're staying ahead of everybody else because of how good your positioning is. If you guys have watched my channel enough, or you watch any other educational content creator, you know, like Resub or Driving, you should know all about these mechanics of zones and how strong they are if you use them properly. Even though right here I get a pretty bad zone, because I'm away from all those people on the congested side, I'm actually able to farm my metal a little bit. I even find a launch pad, which I ended up taking this game to see if I can maybe use it for a rotate later on. And remember, do not waste games. At this point in time, I've committed like 20 minutes almost of this entire cup, and I could easily waste all of that time spent for only about 20 points if I was to lose a fight at this point in time. So I'm much happier to just play this game out, you know, find that launch pad that I found out there and actually use that to rotate instead. And now, because of how much time I spent in this game, I'm actually going to start racking up a lot of placements and get my average points up per game up to like 40 or 50 just from playing smart. Now, when it comes to rotates endgame, this is what I really recommend: carrying gold splashes at all points in time. The ideal loadout for solos, in my opinion, is basically what I've got right here. Bigs, so you don't have to waste those gold splashes to stay up to 200 HP. Gold splashes, you have extra mobility, as well as that bat, which, you know, you can either get lucky and get it off spawn from heist bags like that, or you go ahead and just find it mid-game like I just explained. Now, at this point in time, I really think these endgame rotates, if you do them how I'm doing them here with the bat and the gold splash, we basically just zoom the whole way across, are so easy. And my next tip for doing better in solos, especially if not the best, is always trying to be aware of the terrain that zone is pulling. So right here, it's a massive canyon zone. It's very important that you stay up on good layers and also make sure you're fully connected so you get chopped out. And this just makes your next rotate much easier compared to, you know, people that are max distance up on height who obviously have to build the entire game, or people who are playing sort of lower mid ground who end up just wasting mats from having to tarp too much. Also, your main goal whenever you're doing a rotate should be trying to get from point A to point B, not necessarily getting the whole way into zone. So right here, all I do is just take a little pause as I get like halfway towards zone, break your rotates up into little segments or little chunks rather than trying to rotate the whole zone in one go, and do not be afraid of building a 2x1. So basically every single rotate should follow this exact formula. You see where zone's pulling, you scout the terrain, maybe even tank a bit of storm with a gold splash, and then you just simply hop out the top of your box, make sure to build a little bit as you go so you can try to get up to a better layer, and then always finish it off by building a 2x1, which makes it a lot harder for you to die, as well as a lot easier to find kills and find refreshes as well. If you follow this really simple endgame formula of just scouting every single time you rotate, as well as saving gold splashes for these endgame rotates, the game becomes 10 times easier, and you're guaranteed to get like top 5s if you just execute this correctly. Also, try to do those little floor bounces in your head to get a lot further into zone. All right, now let's go and take a look at an actual stacked game. This is the very last game in the cup, and everybody in this lobby needed around 30 points to actually get this skin, myself included. So let me show you guys how I play it. First things first, always insta rotate with the gold splash if you can. I had a massive base up there that I had a good zone positioning on, so I pulled a bunch of zones, and my mats are still pretty good at this point. All I focus on is being the first one into the end of zone, and I'm just going to tarp in of metal, basically make it risk-free for me not to get fought right here. All right, now I get a very difficult first moving zone. I'm in a bad position backside, so I tank storm backside with my splash, and then I try to zigzag as I rotate, and I try to avoid jumping too much and sort of bunny hopping through the zone. This means that I'm able to get the whole way towards front side, build myself again a 2x1, but it's very hard for people to key me. And the first thing I do as soon as I box up is look for a refresh on somebody who's popping heals next to me. Get a little long piece on this other player, take them out, and immediately claim all of the loot. And that one refresh, as you can see there, like I literally get so much mats from that I needed, as well as the siphon. Now I don't need to do anything for the rest of this game. One of the biggest tips if you're in a stacked game like this is don't wait until you've got like, you know, 20 builds left and then go for a refresh. Try to get a refresh early, especially if you see somebody fighting or you see somebody gets cracked, and it makes the game so much easier because now all I need to do is just play good layers, have good positioning over and over. Like you can see here, I'm dead side first moving in a 2x1 in metal. I don't have to worry about anything. I don't have to fight for a refresh. refresh, I can just have the easiest game of all time at this point in time. So how do I do that? As soon as zone pulls, I start scouting out. I start getting information about where I'm going to, as well as what's going on around me. I wait for the footsteps, so all of the people behind and next to me, I wait for them to go, and then all I do, little bit of a rotate out of low, since there's nobody ahead of me that I scouted, ramp up, and now, despite my bad mechanics and my terrible solo game sense, I'm actually in a good position right here where I can continue to rotate from. Again, remember, always break your rotates down into little chunks, as well as do not be afraid of just pausing if you're in a risky situation. You don't want to cut the whole way down to front side when everybody's going to get on top of your head and start fighting you or pumping into back. Instead, pause over and over, and if somebody starts smacking on you, don't be afraid to just instantly dip out of that situation like I did right there. The guy smacked my wall, and I literally just insta-edited out, ran away, got myself towards front side, and then looked back for some more kills and for some more easy elims. One of the biggest things that you need to remember at these points during endgames is that Storm is actually, again, your friend. If you're ever looking really scuffed on a rotate, it's so much better to just tank Storm, go around, or even tank Storm backside to assess your options a little bit more, like I do right here, rather than just trying to rotate through congestion. If you go wide in Storm, you're basically guaranteed to never get shot on your back, never get looked at as you rotate, as well as allows you to cut other people off very, very nicely, because you can get a free rotate straight towards front side like I did right here. Exact same thing in a second. I'm getting cut off, there's loads of footsteps, I don't really have that much information on what's going on, so I'm trying to find a good timing to actually leave my box, and I decide just to wait for Storm to hit me, and then that allows me to cut the whole way towards front side. The longer that you can stay in your initial sort of pause that you did, then that means the further you can get into the end of zone, so you can be ahead of other people and then be looking back at those other players, and suddenly you're into final moving like I am right here. And at this point in time, again, it's all about just squeezing out placement. Somebody is fighting on my wall right here, I just make sure to not over peak, not waste my shield or my HP straight away, get a little bit of brick from that, and that little bit of brick allows me to just keep playing my life for a second. Tank Storm again, since I've still got the splash for the entire game, tank Storm backside, and at this point, in hindsight, I probably should have focused on chopping out the hype player and then beaming them, but instead, I was more so focused on getting the placement and securing the skin, since I know it would be quite hard to actually, get it, and it came down to a 1v1v1 situation. Was a player below me with a lot of mats, as was a player up on height. Ended up getting sandwiched right here when I had 0 builds remaining, but still, getting top 3 at this point in time is, pretty decent considering how bad I was playing in the most recent solo cash go. Alright guys, that is all for this video. Hopefully this was useful. If you are the worst solo player of all time and you just want to recap like the basic fundamentals of the game, or even if you want to go ahead and learn from some of the best fighters and the best players of all time, go check out the Solos Mask Guards $1 Million Edition. There's literally so many videos at the top right here from all of these pros for the brand new season and the brand new meta, as well as if you're lucky enough to have the Fighting Mask Guards, we just dropped the 2.0 update, which you probably might have seen, as well as there's an insanely amount of useful solo guides in here. It's not just fighting inside the Fighting Mask Guards, despite its name, with a full inside the mind section, a full trios, fighting guide, as well as, of course, all the playstyle, the pros, the warm-ups, and you can go sign up for either of those with code earnings and save 25% if you are interested. Definitely one of the best ways to improve at solos is just watching a pro player play, figuring out what they're doing, as well as understanding your limitations, and then applying what the pro player strategy is to your own skill level, which is what I did in this most recent cut. All right, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.